Kakalosh Vokatov, Masechet Pesachim Daf Kuf Yud Aleph, Daf 111. Okay, remember that we're doing already tomorrow's Daf. Okay, on the bottom of Kuf Yud Amud Bet, it says, Amar Rav Yehuda Shmuel, says Rav Yehuda in the name of Shemuel, Kol Mazug Mitzaref, anything which is going to be mazug, which means that it's going to be water diluted, it's going to be mitzaref with each other, which means that usually, right, what happens is that different types of liquids do not combine between themselves, right? Here, though, right, what happens is that it is going to combine, which means that the second that it was diluted with water, they're going to combine with each other, chutz min hamayim, except for water, which was going to be diluted with hot water, or hot water with cold water, which means water with water do not combine, but anything which was diluted with water, they're going to combine together. But Rabbi Yochanan says, afilu mayim, which means that even by water, it's going to be considered kemashke mazug, like a liquid which was diluted, and therefore it's going to be mitzaref, it's going to be combined with other types of liquids as well. Amar Rav Papa, says Rav Papa, lo amaran ela chamimeh lego kirireh ukirireh lego chamimeh. What is this talking about? The words of Rabbi Yochanan was only talking about hot water into cold water, or cold water into hot water. However, though, but when it's talking about hot water and hot water, or cold water and cold water, right? Lo, then even Rabbi Yochanan is going to be modeh that it's not considered a mashke mazug. It's not going to be considered a liquid which is going to be mazug, which is going to be diluted. Okay? Now the Gemara says, Amar Reshakish, says Reshakish, Arba'a dvarim ha'oseh otan damo b'rasho mitchei b'nasho. There are four things that if a person is going to do it, it's considered that, right, damo b'rasho mitchei b'nasho, which means that it's considered that he put himself into a sakana, and that in itself is a big problem. And these are the four things. Hanifne ben dekel lekotel, if a person is going to do his necessities in between a palm tree and a wall. Okay? Because here it says that the Shindalids, they have permission to go in certain places where a lot of people are not there. And therefore, it says that's why they don't go in the middle of the path. However, though, they go on the side of the path beside the walls. Now, if you're going to go right then and there to do your necessities, you're putting yourself into sakana. If you pass through two palm trees, if you're going to drink water which is going to be borrowed, or you're going to pass through water which is shuchin, which is basically spilled waters, bad waters, and even if it was that his wife went and she poured it in front of him. So now the Gemara is going to try to analyze each one of these cases. Okay, so how many did you have here? 4 different cases. Okay, number 1, Hanifne ben dekel kotel. Was the first one, which is basically if a person is going to start doing his necessities in between a palm tree and the wall. Lamaran, this was not said, ela deletle arba amot. This is if not that they don't have 4 amot distance in between the palm tree and the wall. But if you have 4 amot between the palm tree and the wall, let lamba, there's no problem. Why? Because once there's going to be more than 4 amot and there's enough space, so therefore there's no problem. And also when we said that there's not going to be arba amot, right? And we said there's going to be a sakana. Lo amaram, when do we say this? Only if there's not going to be another derech, right? Why? Because the shadim, they don't have another path in order to go through. But if they do have another derech to go through, let lamba. So then again, you do not have to suspect it. So therefore, there's no problem. Meaning, if they do have another point of access in order to get there, to go through, there's no problem. Okay? Next halacha. However, ben shne dekalim. If a person is going to pass through 2 palm trees, lo amaran, we didn't say that it's going to be a sakana. If there's not a reshut rabim which is in between the 2 palm trees. Why? Because since there's no rabim which are passing through the palm trees, this is a place for the shindalits to be there. Aval paskinu reshut rabim. However, though, if right now there's a reshut rabim going in between the 2 palm trees, let lamba, so therefore there's no problem whatsoever. Because again, anytime when you're going to have the rabim, the public accessing it, so the shadim, the shindalits are not going to be there. So therefore, if you have a rabim going right through in the middle, there's no problem. Third one, hashote ma'im shiulin. If somebody's going to come and drink waters which are borrowed, we didn't say that it's ele de shalinhu katan, when a child, a minor, asks for it. Aval gadol, but if it was a gadol that he came, meaning a person that's above the age of bar mitzvah, that they came and they were the ones that borrowed it, let lamba, there's no problem. Okay? Here it says, because since the shadim are shorim on mayim, which are found in the shoot of ktanim, kedei lirvot et simonam, in order to tranquilize their thirst, in order to, I don't know a better word for that, satisfy their thirst, thank you, or to quench, to quench their thirst. They say, they think quench. Yeah? Now. So now he comes and he says, Vafilu Shaninu, he says, Vafilu Shaninu Katan, even if it's going to be that a katan, a minor did come and he borrowed it, right? Nami lo amran ela basadet, it's only going to be in the field. Lo shchiche, because there's not a lot of water there. Aval bayir, but if it's going to be in the city, the shchiche, that it is going to be common, their water, let lanba, there's no problem whatsoever, you do not have to suspect for anything. Vafilu basadeh, and even if it's going to be in the field, Nami lo amran ela maya, that's only going to be water. Aval, chamra, v'shichra, but if it's going to be wine or beer, let lamba, we do not have to suspect for anything. Okay? So again, what's the child doing with it? I don't ask too many questions. Right? Fine. Va'over al maim shefuchim. The next one. Right? The next one was, and the last one that Shakish actually came and he actually counted was, that if somebody's going to be over on maim shefuchim, right? Lo amran, what are we dealing with? There was no, that they didn't cover it with afar, which means they didn't come and they didn't take, right, dirt or whatever and start covering these maim shvuchim. Velo tafbehu roka, or he didn't spit on it. Okay, aval of sekinu or tafbehu roka. But if he did cover it, or he placed, right, he put his saliva, right, he actually phlegmed on top of it. Lelamba, there's no problem. Velo amran, and also we didn't say that it's a sakana. Ela delo avar ala yushimsha. If the shemesh did not pass on these waters, velo avar ala yushiti nigre, and they didn't pass on the 60 steps on it. However, though, if a person is going to come and he's going to pass over it, right, which means that the sun is going to be on top of it, or the person, there's not going to be a problem. And also, we didn't say that it's going to be a sakana. If he's not going to be riding on a donkey, or he does not have shoes. But if he's got shoes or he's riding on a donkey, let lamba, there's also no problem whatsoever on going on top of this maim shofchim. And also these words, if you're not going to start suspecting for witchcraft, which means that there's not a lot of witchcraft which is going to be found. And the only suspicion is going to be for the shindalids, for the demons, and not for the witchcraft. But if you do want to suspect for kshafim, which means that you've got a few witches in your neighborhood, even though you do have, right? Sometimes it happens, yeah. So he says, so then, even though it does happen that you have all these things, we are going to suspect. Why? Because the witchcraft is much more powerful than the shadim. So therefore, that's what he's saying over here. Even if you do have all these tzanaim, all these conditions, right? Still, we're going to suspect from passing by maim shefuchim. And the proof is, there was a person that he was doing both. He had also, right? He was riding on a donkey, and also he had his shoes on. And all of a sudden, what happened is because the shoes started shrinking, right? And the legs became dried. Why? Because of the kshafim. So you see from here that even though you went and you did all these tanaim and you did a whole bunch of different things, you see that the second that there was such a concept of this powerful witchcraft, the witchcraft is going to be more powerful, right, than even the koach of the shadim. Okay? Yeah? Fine. Which one? White. No, he does it for Shabbat. Yeah? Tanu Rabbanan, we learned it in Braita. Shilosha en mematziin. Right? What does that mean? Where there's going to be three people that we don't put them in the middle, meaning to pass through people. Okay? That means we don't let them go in between. Okay? Ve lo mitmatziin. And we do not pass through them as well. Which means not only do we let you pass through them in the middle, but we don't let them pass through them. Veluhen, and these are these. Right? Kelev v'adekel v'isha. A dog, a palm tree, and a woman. Okay? What does that mean exactly? So it says here, v'yesh omrim, and some people say afa chazir, even a pig. V'yesh omrim, some people say afa nachash, even a snake. Ve'em matziin, right? Sorry, ve'im matziin. Now, if you do pass through them, maita kante. So what are you going to do now? Right? What's going to happen now? Right? Which means, well, there are two things. First of all, we don't let them pass in the middle. And number two, we don't let you pass in the middle. Which means you're not supposed to pass. We don't let a dog pass in between us. Let's say Philip and myself were two people right beside each other. Yeah. So we don't let a dog pass through us, in between us. A dekel, a palm tree, which obviously the palm tree is not moving. It's us moving through it, obviously, hopefully, right? And a woman. The same, and some people say even a pig, and some people say even a snake. Now the other one was, right, velo mitmatzein, is that we don't pass through them either, which means a man should not pass through two dogs. A man should not pass through two women. A man should not pass through two snakes or even two pigs or whatever, every single one of these, which the Gemara was actually talking about. Okay? Now the Gemara says that what happens if you do it though? What happens if you did come and you pass through it? Maitakante, what is going to be the takana? What's going to be fixed? Amar Papa says, Niftach, you should come and open up with Be'el, with the name of Hashem. Venafsik, and you should finish with the name of Hashem, El. Right? Inami, or, right? You start a pasuk that starts with El and you finish with El. Okay, that's what you're supposed to do. Okay, so here it says, Alav lomar et apsukim El motziyah mimsek tuvah ki lo nachash v'yakol v'Yaakov ma pal El. So it started with El and it finishes with El. Okay, that's what the Rashbam here brings down. Okay, the Tosafot in the name of Rabbeinu Haran will bring down another nusach, right? El Chapayim, right? El Chapayim, what do you say on Mondays and Thursdays? Yeah, so the same thing. You start with El and you finish with El. So two different psukim of how to say it, but you start with El and you finish with El. Next, okay, Niftach belo v'nafsik belo, or you start with the word lo and you finish with the word lo. So it says here lo ish el v'chazev v'nadav v'nechama hu amav lo yaseh v'diber lo yikmena, right? Which starts with lo and it finishes with v'lo yikimena. Okay, so that's the second lo. So it starts with lo, finishes with lo. Again, Tosot and name of Rabbeinu Haran bring down another nusach. Okay, fine. So two different nuschot. Okay, so now it says the Gemara, Hani betrei dematza lehu. Right? What happens if you have two people, they pass between Isha Nida? So they pass, right? That a woman that she's an Isha Nida passed through them. So then, in Tchilat Nidatahi, Horege Vechamehen. If it's that you that no, the woman passed between them. So basically, you have two men, one here, one there, and a woman Nida passed in between. So it says over here. So what happens? If she's at the beginning of the nidah, she kills one of them. Yeah? It says, Imsof nidata, but if it's the end of the nidah, meriva osa benein, she makes them fight. Yeah? So somehow, you've got your best friend beside you, and all of a sudden, boom, you're going to get into a milchama. Yeah, you're going to get into a war. Okay? So says the Gemara, right? So, maita kante, what do you do then? Niftach be'el v'nafsik be'el. You start with a pasuk that starts with El, and you finish with a pasuk that finishes with El. Okay, Hani tre nashe. There were two women. Tiyatvam beparashat derachim, that they were sitting down in the parashat derachim. Chada ba'gisa deshila v'chada ba'gisa. So mamash, there was a board b'rishut rabim. One woman was on one side of the road, and one woman was on the other side of the road. And therefore, if you want to pass by, you're going to pass by both women. Now we just said that a man should not pass between, whether it's two dogs, whether it's two women, whether it's two, pigs, two snakes. Let's see. So it says, right? And their faces were towards each other. So says the Gemara, for sure they're doing kshafim. Meaning the fact that they're facing each other, and one's on one side, one's on another, for sure they're doing witchcraft. So there's a lot of, there's black magic going on there, yeah? So what do you do? If you have another path, Elizabeth, go through the other path. But you don't have another path. But if you have somebody else with you, hold on to your friend's hand and pass through. You heard? That means you grab your friend's hand and you walk by through them, holding hands. If you don't have anybody else, this is what you have to say. Agrat azla, asya belusia, mitkatla bechek kaval. Wow. Right? Let's see, what does this mean? These are names of shedim, right, that the mechashvot use for their witchcraft. Agrat is Agrat bat machalat, which is going to be brought later on. So it's Agrat bat machalat. Agrat azlat asya belusia mitkatla bechek kaval. They're already killed with arrows. Okay, so the last words were bitkatla bechek kaval. So there was four names, no? Yeah, four names. Four names. They were already killed with arrows. Fine. If a man comes and he finds a woman coming out from the mikveh after Tevilat Mitzvah, if he has his relations before her, so then all of a sudden there's going to be a ruach zirunim, some ruach that's going to get him. She has the relations first. So it goes on to her.
Before going to the mikveh?
No. She just came out of the mikveh. And let's say somebody found her, right? Somebody met her, and she just came out of the mikveh. So it depends who has relations first. If she got home and she had relations with her husband first, so she has a ruach zirunim on her first. If he went home and he had relations first, so he has the ruach zirunim.
That's if they saw themselves.
If the what?
If she saw him or he saw her.
Yeah, they saw each other. He met her. Imagine she comes out of the mikveh and also, oops, I just saw her.
But just to see somebody?
Yeah.
Relation with the husband or somebody else? I don't understand.
Hopefully it's with the husband.
Yeah, but so what do you mean?
It says here, Maita Kante, so what do you do? Leima Hachi, this is what you're supposed to say. Shofech buz al nedivim, vayatem betohu lo darech. This is the Perek of Tehillim Pesach that we're going to read on the night of Pesach. So we say in Kuf Zayin 107, we say Shofech buz al nedivim, vayatem betohu lo darech, which means you're going to make them into a mistake. Right, so it says over here, some people say that you should actually say both psukim. Some people say, why do we say that ruach zirunim is a yetzer v'ta'ava chazakim midai? They're it's a strong yetzerah, right, which is going to bring a person to do znut. So therefore, you want to come and you want to do it, we're doing a mitzvah lishma. So therefore, what's happening is you're saying shofech buzal nedim, which means that you're trying to make a v'yatem b'tohu lo darech. Darech is obviously like a path. So therefore, what you're trying to do is you're trying to show the mitzvah. Okay?
Not from here.
Fine. So now it says here, right? It says here as follows. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, says Rabbi Yitzchak, what does it mean when it's written in the pasuk? Right? What does that mean? That even if you're going begitz al mavet, right, which is obviously something negative, right? Usually we translate getz al mavet as geinam, but it says over here, even if you're going to go and getz al mavet, nothing bad will happen to you because you're with me. This is talking about somebody that comes and he goes to sleep, right? It says by a dekel yichidi, right? And he's sleeping in the shade of a single palm tree, and there's no other palm tree beside it, or in the tzel levana, yeah, in the tzel of the levana, the tzel of the moon. And even when we talked about the tzel, the shadow of a dekel yichidi, that's only going to be written when there's no.
The levana, they mean under the light of the moon.
Yes, the moonlight, right? Here we're talking about that you don't have the tzel of your friend, which is on top of you, which means that it doesn't have from another dekel. But if you also have the tzel of the other one in front of you, meaning that you also have the tzel, the shadow, the shade of the other palm tree as well, so then there's no problem. But that which we learned to the right. What happens if you're going to sleep in the shade of a dekel yichidi, in the shade of a palm tree, which is going to be how do you call it, of a single one, in the courtyard, or Yashem b'tzel levana, damo berosho, right? His blood is in his head. Hey, what's the case? If you're going to tell me that he doesn't have the shade on it, so then afilu b'sadenami, so then even in the field it's going to be the same thing. And love shmamina, but rather it comes to teach you bechatzer af agav denafil tula dechavri lave, even though it did have the cell of its friend on top. Veshmamina. So says the Gemara, "V'tzila shel levana lo amran ela b'ma'arava." That's also, they didn't say it's only when it's going to be b'tzad ma'arav, on the west. Aval b'medin dincha, but if it's going to be b'tzad mizrach, let lamba, there's no problem. Meaning the problem is only going to be on the west side. It says over here, b'sof hachodesh. It says here at the end of the month, when the when the moon is going to be in the east, if somebody is going to be lying down on the west side of the kotel, so he's found in the tzel of the levana. Okay, that's going to be at the end of the month.
But they mean that don't mean that it's Eretz Israel.
No, Tzad Ma'arav. Yeah. So he says over here, Utzila shel Lebanon. Yeah, it's nothing to do with the Marava. Here is Marav, not that itself. But it's going to be on the east. Let Lamba, there's no problem. Right? Kuf Yud Aleph Amud Bet. Hayman de Mafne Agir da Dikla. The Mipne Agir da Dikla. Somebody is going to be mitpaneh, which means he's going to do his necessities on the geza. The geza is the bottom part of the tree, which is like the trunk of the tree. Yeah. So he comes and he says, if somebody is going to be doing his necessities on the geza of a palm tree, which is cut down, okay, achdalei, right, ledidei, ruach palga. So then he will get this ruach palga. What does that mean? Ruach, which is causing shituk. It causes what is it called? Paralysis. Right. When a person he becomes paralyzed. Yeah. And somebody that's going to come and support his head on top of a gez of a dekel katzutz. So he's going to get something which causes a ke'ev in half of his head. It says here hemicrania. It's like a
half of his head.
Yeah, half of his head. Haiman the pasya dikla, somebody that's going to come and he's going to pass through on top of a dekel, on top of a palm tree which is cut. In miktal, if it was cut down, katil, he will also get killed. Iyakar, if it was just uprooted, miyakar umayit, so he's also going to get uprooted and he's going to die. So basically, never walk on top of a uprooted or a cut tree, right? We're talking about a palm tree. Okay? Hani mile, one of these words, it says zelo manakare ilaveh. We're talking about if he didn't put his foot on top of it, right? If he didn't put his foot in it, yeah. Aval manach karei ilaveh, but if he put his foot right on top of it, let lamba, right? Mamash, if you put your foot on top of it, so you don't have to worry about it. Okay.
What do you mean?
If you put your foot on top of this tree, which was, if you walked over it, is the problem. But if you put your foot in it,
okay,
right? Here, I guess is the only time when it's actually good to put your foot in it.
Yeah.
Okay. You heard? It's the only time when it's good to put your foot in it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cut. Put your foot in it. Yeah. Exactly. Fine. Next. Chamisha tu lehave. There's going to be 5 different types of cells, 5 different types of shades, right? Which you have to be careful of. Tula de dikla yachida, cell of a dekel yachid, an individual, right? Palm tree. Tula de kanda, and the cell of a wood which is called khurshaf. I don't know what that is. Khurshaf. Okay, doesn't translate it either. Tula de tenata, the cell of a fig tree. Tula de pircha, cell of tzlaf. Tzlaf is usually like it's like a chaff that it only grows a third. Does it have an English word or not? Caper bush. Okay, caper bush. Tula de zardeta, cell of ozrad. What is that? It says here. Doesn't say it either. Sword tree. Sorb tree. S-O-R-B. Okay, a sorb tree. Ika de amni, some people say also aftula de arba vetula de aravta. Some people say also the tsel, the shade of a boat, or the tsel of arava. Yeah, arava, you know what you use for the arava. How do you say it in English? Not myrtle. Myrtle is the hadas. The arava is willow tree. Willow. Lala de milta, right? The general rule is kol de nafi shanpe kashetule. Any etz which has so many branches, so the tsel is mazik. So the shade is going to be mazik, right? Why? Because there's going to be a lot of ruchot raot which are going to go underneath it. V'chol de kashe silke kashetule, and any etz that its etz is mazik, so the tsel is mazik, which means that if the tree itself is going to be, meaning that it's got a lot of thorns, so therefore the shade also is going to be very bad. Yeah. So he says, yeah, lebar mikru, right? Misha, yeah. Levar mikru mesha, except for the etza dafna, except for the etza dafna. Okay, so he says afal gav de kashu reit silve, even though the etz is mazik, lo kashe tule, it is not going to be the tsel is not going to be mazik, right? The amra le shida libra, because says, right? The amra le shida libra, because it was a shida that said to its child, pirche nafshech mikru masha, right? Which means run away from this etz dafna. They killed your father, now actually killed you as well. Which means that the shadim, they come and they go on this tree. So Amar Ravashi says, Chazina le Rav Kahana de Parish Mikula Tule. I saw Rav Kahana that he was distancing himself from all types of tzel, from all types of shades. Beparche, right? When we're talking about the shedim, which are going to be on this tzel tzlaf, ruche de bezarda, right? They're talking about shedim, which are going to be on this shade of zarda, right? Which we translated was sorb. What was it? Was it the sorb one? I don't know. He translated as sorb tree. Sorb tree. Sheda, we're talking about the shedim de beigre rishpe. We're talking about rishpe esh. Okay? Fine. Says the Gemara, "L'may nafkamina." What's an nafkamina? He says lekmiya, for to write a kmiya on it, so that somebody that's going to be damaged from these shedim to know exactly what was going on. So, for example, if he was going to be damaged from underneath the tzlaf, so they have to write down because of ruche. If he was going to be another one, so he has to write down because sheda. So basically, it depends where he was going to be damaged or where he passed, what they're actually going to write down. The ve-pirche, when we're talking about ve-pirche, we're talking about a creature, right? That means a shed which is underneath this tail of the tzlaf of the caper bush tree. It's a briyad that does not have eyes. L'may nafkamina. What's an nafkamina? Legezuze la. In order to know whether to run away from it, since it doesn't have eyes, so you could run away because it's not going to run after you. It doesn't have eyes. Zimna chada, it once happened. Hava azil tzuba merabanan lapri leve pirche. There was once a Tamil Chacham that he went to do his necessities by a tzlaf, by a caper bush tree. Shema de ka'ata ilave, so he heard that the shed was coming. The gazila, right? So he ran away. Kiazla, right? But then when he was running after it, chabke ledikla, right? He went and he grabbed the dekel. So tzavach dikla upakahi. So what happened was the shed broke basically. The dikla went, the dekel became yavesh, and the shed exploded. Right? Why? Because basically the shed can't see. So you went and you got it exploded. The Beis Zardata, what? The Beis Zardata, it says Shede. It says over here, the Gemara above said that the name of the Shedim of the Beis Zardata, which is basically going to be in this sorb tree, is Shede. Hazardata desmicha lemata, but if it's going to be close to the city, lo pachta mishidim shede, it's not going to be less than 60 shedim. Lemay nafkamina, what's an nafkamina? Lemichtav la kamiya, to write down on the kamiya about that he wrote down, because again, every single kamiya, it's like a recipe, right? When you're going to come and you're going to have any type of a prescription from a doctor, he has to be very specific. What's he writing? How much of each percentage? How much of each thing? Why? Because it makes a difference. So you have to know. So the exact same thing. You have to know exactly what happened in order to write a proper kamiya. Hau bar kashya, kasha demata lemata. So he says over here, there was a story with a shomer ir, with a watchman of the city, that he went and he was beside this sorb tree, right? That was close to the city. Alu beshitin shida vistakan. So there were 60 shedim that came around, and he became sakana. Atalu merabanan delo that is after the shitin shedehi. So same came one of the chachamim that he didn't know that it had 60 type of shedim. Katav la kamiya lechadash. So you only wrote a kamiya for one. Shama de talu chigna begave. So you heard that they were putting klinigina inside of it, the kamashu hachi, and they were singing. Sudre de mor kitsurba merabanan. This sudar, this handkerchief of the Adon, which is like a Tamil Chacham that's so young. Badikna bebe mor, we checked it, lo yada baruch, that he didn't know the beracha voter Yisrael betifara. So atahu merabanan diyad dezarta shitin chedehav. So there was another rabbi that came. Now he already knew that there's going to be 60 right shedim over there. So what happened? Katavla, he wrote a kamiya the shidim shedi. So then they said, "Panu minaychu me'achano." We have to get out of here. Why? Because the second that they had from against the 60 shedim, so now they all had to run away. Meaning that at the beginning, when it was only going to be against the one, so okay, so one has to run away, all the other 59 they stay. But now that you have all 60 that are written there in the Kamiya, now all of them have to run away. Ketev mirdi, when it's written in the pasuk ketev mirdi, tre kit behavu. There are two types of ketev mirdi, two types of shedei ketev. Chad mikame tiara, one before the afternoon. One of them after the afternoon. The mikame tiara, right? The one which is going to be before the afternoon is ketev miridi shemo. It's going to be ketev miridi. And it looks like a kada kutach, which is basically like this, like this porridge, right? Bekava kedira, which is going to be you have to mix it. The one which is after the afternoon, ketev yeshut seoraim shemo. So that's called the ketev yeshut seoraim. So it looks like between the horns of the goats, right? Like a nafa mistovevet. Yeah. Right? Abaye v'shakil v'azil. In the parasha, in the Varim, the Lamed Bet.
No, I know, but when
So it says here like this: Abaye avashakil v'azil v'azil Rav Papa mineh v'Rav Huna bered Rav Yoshua mismaleh. So what happened was Abaye he was going, and Rav Papa he was going on the right and on the left. So Rav Papa was on the right, Rav Huna bered Yoshua was on the left. Chazi elahu ketev miniri, so he found ketev miniri. The kaati leaped ismaleh, that he came towards the left. Ahadre le Rav Papa lismaleh, so he turned towards the left. Rav Huna bered Rav Yoshua lemineh, and then he went to the right. Amaleh Rav Papa ana ma'ishna delo chashashli. Says, why don't I have a problem of this? Amaleh he says at shata kaim talach. You have the shah, you have the mazal. So don't worry about it because of the mazal. Echad betamuz at shitzar, right? Be vaday shchiche. He says after from the 1st of Tammuz until the 16th, you have ketev miniri for sure is going to be found. Mikam va'elach, so that's what we're talking about from the Tammuz until the 6th, 17th. Safek shchiche, but from then onwards it's a safek whether it's shachiach or not shachiach. Umishtache betula dechutzba delo chatzav garmida. So he's going to be found in the siach hachatzav, men, which is not going to be found. Okay. Men. Okay. And so it says here, Delo Chatzav Garmida, Uvtula de Tzafra, Uvtula de Tzafra, Ufanya Delo Garmida. So he says, we're talking about the tzel in the morning and the nighttime, which is not in Dama.
Kuf Yud Amud Bet, right?
Yeah, we're on Kuf Yud Aleph Amud Bet. We're on the bottom.
Okay.
Yeah. So he says over here, Uvtula de Tzafra, Ufanya Delo Garmida. We're talking about the tzel of the morning and the nighttime, which is not Beorechama. The ikar betula de, but the ikar is we're talking about the shade of the washroom. Okay, fine. Amar of Yosef says of Yosef, Hani tzlat mila yahiv arbona lenehora. There are 3 different hanagot which cause a person to become blind. Man de sarik reshe, somebody that's going to start combing his hair, right, his head when it's yavesh, when it's dry. Man de shata tiftif, somebody that's going to drink wine, which is mitaftef from the chavit, so he's dripping, and he's going to drink wine. Man de sayem mesanim edmiyata kara. If he's going to close his shoes when his feet are still moist from the rechitza, from washing them. Tlai beveta, right? Pat, bread, which is going to be placed inside of a basket, which is talui bavir kashin yuta, which means that you should never hang bread, right? This is a very, very important concept. People don't know this, which means if you just bought bread, you have it in a bag, I'm going to hang it up on somewhere. Never hang bread. It's kashila and yuta. Just like people say, tala silta, tala mezoneh. If you're going to be tole, the sal, if you're going to be tole, you're going to hang a basket, and inside of it bread, you're being tole your parnasa. Velo amran, but what are you talking about? Only drifta, only bread. Aval bisra, but if it's going to be meat, vekavre, or fish, le lamba, there's no problem. Orche, but it's normal to do that. So you could always hang fish and meat, but not bread. Pare beveta kashlinyuta. If somebody has bran in their house, it also causes aniut. Nashvara beveta kashlinyuta, or pirure pat, right? The crumbs of the bread also causes aniut. Le shabatot v'le reviot, right? Sharu mazikin laveh. It says here on the night of whether it's Leil Shabbat or on Tuesday night, the Mizikim are going to be there. Because the name of the Malach, which is Memuneh on the Parnasah, his name is Nakid. So that's Lashon of Nekiyut. So therefore, Isarad Niyut Naval Shemeh. The name of the Malach, which is Memuneh on the Niyut, his name is Naval. Okay? So there's a Ke'ara, which is placed on the Piach Chavit, it's going to cause a Niyut. Somebody's going to drink water from the plate, it's going to bring himself into a choli, which is going to stop his eyes. It's going to cause problems in his eyes. The achle tachlef, he's going to eat shachalaim. Shachalaim they translate usually as, it's like a very sharp cress, exactly, cress. Velo mashiyade, but he doesn't wash his hands afterwards. Mefachet zatin yomin, he's going to be afraid for 30 days, but he doesn't know from what he's afraid of. And then the Gemara continues with the Pesach of Shateh. What happens if he's going to be Mekiz Dam and he's not going to wash his hands? Obviously, here we're talking about all the things that you're supposed to wash your hands, because if you don't wash your hands, it's going to be a problem. No,